Hey, what's up, guys? This is Malcolm with Malcolm Davey Photography. I want to thank you guys for visiting the channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about lighting. Just a quick discussion about lighting and how important it is in photography. Some of you guys are probably new to photography, but what you'll find out pretty quickly is that once you're able to control light, then your pictures are going to come out a whole lot better. So let's start from the very beginning. When you have a camera, and I'm talking about a DSLR, a professional camera. I started out with the Canon T2i, which was a great camera at the time, especially for a beginner. That camera had a little flash that'll pop out on the top, right? And I would use it to light up my subject. So I'm taking pictures not knowing that using the flash on top is just a no-no. You just do not do that. It makes your pictures overexposed. You get the red eye from people. They have the little, they call it red eye. You know what I'm talking about. And I would look at the pictures. I'm like, dang, it's got to be a better way. So then I started doing more research and realized that, yeah, you need to get you a off-camera flash. So there's different companies that you can buy a flash from, because the Canon flash was like $300 or $400. I didn't want to pay that much money. So I ended up going with the company called Yongnuo or Yongnuo. I can't remember. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. But it's a company and they provide flashes, and it's like half the price or a third of the price. So I got that. I put that on top of my camera and I used that as a flash. And my pictures were coming out much better. But see, I thought that you're supposed to point the light at the subject. That's something else I had to learn. After more research, I found out, like, no, light, you're supposed to bounce light. And see, bouncing light is a concept that's not very intuitive. This doesn't come as common sense to a lot of people. When you take a picture of somebody, you want the light to look natural. You want it to look like it's soft and it's balanced and it's not too bright or too harsh. And the best way to do that is to bounce light. So what do I mean by that? Well, your camera flash, on top of your camera, which is mounted on top of your camera, you have to buy it separate. When you connect it and take a picture, you want to shoot that light up in the air so that it bounces off the ceiling and then comes back down on your subject, and it's going to illuminate everything much, much better. You're not going to have as many shadows. It's not going to look as harsh. Very important that you understand that, because once you start learning how to bounce light, and typically when you bounce light, you're just bouncing it off of the ceiling. Now, if you're in an area where there's no ceiling, obviously you can't bounce the light, right? If you're outside, and you try to bounce the light, it's nothing to bounce off of. What you gonna bounce it off of? A cloud? So sometimes you need to know, are these ceilings too high for this light to bounce up and then come back down? This might not be the perfect time for me to use this flash. So when you're outside, you're rarely using a flash. When you have very high ceilings, you're very rarely using a flash. All right. But some people still use a flash outside if you want to illuminate the person's face, because sometimes the sun might be behind them and you don't want the glare of the sun to be right in their face. So you turn them away from the sun. But then if they're turned away from the sun, their face is kind of dark. So in that situation, you might want to point the flash directly at their face, but not turned all the way up though. And just click, make a little, make that flash come out just a little bit to brighten up their face. But that's neither here nor there, folks. I'm telling you guys a lot of stuff, but this is stuff that you're going to have to find out on your own. A lot of this about bouncing light, because light is photography. That's what it's all about. You can get you a good camera starting off at about $500-$600. But when you start looking at cameras that are $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, the reason why they cost so much is because they're able to make better use of the available light. So what does that mean? That basically means that you can be walking around at night and decide that you want to take a picture or something, but it's kind of dark. Well, an expensive camera is still going to be able to pick up some of those fine details and still come up with a really nice image, even though you don't have a lot of available light. You see, the camera's sensor, the camera's lens, is able to make better use of the available light. So, like, take for instance, our eyes. When we look through our eyes, and hopefully you don't wear contacts or glasses, I'm talking about 20/20 vision, folks. When you look around and you see things, your eyes are like the perfect camera. There are people in labs right now, engineers, all of these people trying to figure out how can we make a camera that will mimic what the eye can do. Because, you know, we see things with our eyes that are just flat out beautiful. You know, you're looking at a sunset, like, wow, that's beautiful. Look at the colors. Look at the sun, you know, coming over the horizon. Look how that sun glistens off the water. Look at that fish, how it jumped up in the air real quick, you know? Look at that seagull as it flies over the horizon, and how it's the glint of light off of the bird's back as it flies across. Like, these are things that we see with our eyes. But it's difficult sometimes to capture that same thing that you see with your eyes with a camera. I mean, you could take a picture of it, you could try, but depending on your camera, you may not be able to pick up the details the same way your eye did. So when you look back at that picture, I mean, when you look back at that picture, it's going to look pretty good, but it's not going to look like you remember seeing it with your own eyes. But if you have a really expensive camera, a camera that's able to make better use of the available light, that has better what's called dynamic range, these types of cameras are able to mimic a little bit closer to what your eyes can actually see. So that's kind of just a discussion about light as it pertains to photography. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, well, Malcolm, show me some pictures, man. Like, show me some physical representations of what you mean when you talk about lighting and light and making better use of available light and all this other stuff. And I hear you on that, but right now I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm in the parking lot at work. I'm about to go to work real quick, but I will in future videos provide a little more of an explanation, show you some examples of bad lighting, good lighting, you know, a lot of these things. So if you have, let's just say, if you have a camera that is a little bit old, not up to date, but you still want to take great pictures. Well, one of the first things you have to understand is that, well, if you want to take great pictures and you have an older camera, that's fine, but you better be able to use the available light, because see, the light is what's important. If you have a bad camera and a bad lens and you try to take a picture in low light, that camera's not going to perform very well. Just because you see something with your eyes and you say, you know what, that would be a great picture, with this person smoking a cigarette, leaning up against this alley, leaning up against the telephone pole on his cell phone, you know, with the street light kind of coming down, kind of dim, that would be an awesome picture. Your camera's not going to be able to pick that up. Your camera does not have a sensor that's good enough or dynamic range anywhere near what it would take to be able to capture that photo in such a way that it's going to look good. Now, what you could do is you could try to get a tripod. You could try to set it up, and you could try to take that picture on a longer exposure and tell your subject, please do not move a muscle, so that it won't come out blurry. I know I'm going into some other stuff, guys, but it's so important. Available light, man. If you have good light, you can do a lot. If you have bad light, it's going to be tough. You better have a great camera. So that's where it all boils down. If you're going to be taking a lot of low light photography, that's when you need to invest in a nice camera. If you know you're not going to be taking a lot of low light photography, you might not need to invest in a great camera just yet. You might not just yet. But we'll talk about it in a little more detail at another time. But my name is Malcolm Davey, and this is Malcolm Davey Photography. I'm based out of Atlanta. If you guys need anything, let me know. I'll answer any questions for you. I've been a photographer now for about 7 years. So I got my feet wet pretty well. You know, there's some people out there that are obviously doing much better than I am. But I think I'm one of the better ones in Atlanta. It's just that I'm not quite discovered yet. But that's going to change real soon, guys. So hit me up. Let me know what you think. You know, let me know if you have any questions. I do events, portraits, primarily. I do a wedding here or there, you know. So let me know, man. I'm gonna holler at you guys. Peace.